What's one thing that all successful people seem to have in common?
I think, yeah, look, it's a great question. And obviously, there's been many books and a lot of material over the years, and people are still trying to crack it. I think, in my perspective, it's about going and doing it. Having reducing all the barriers down, and there's a thousand excuses of why you can't do it, but go and do it. And classically,
Mm.
don't put off tomorrow what you can do today. Uh, and you often find that the things that are inhibiting you from doing what you want to do um, aren't really what you thought they were at the very beginning. So as you're doing it, you learn a lot more about the problem space or about the area that you're in. You've got a lot more knowledge, and you can either pivot or you could look at it and say that's not really the problem I thought it was last week because I know a little bit more about it now, and I think about it differently. And I think a lot of by going out and doing it, you've actually got a lot of learned experience that you're only going to know as you're running the race. There's a quote from a famous sportsman that said,
Yeah.
the more I practiced, the luckier I got. So it's all about going out and giving it a go. And there's certain way, there's a whole raft of different ways to term these phrases, but
Mm.
success are the stages in between failures. And we look at, we're very scared of failure in some contexts and whatever failure means, and I want to play it safe, and so you'll never try anything. You'll go into a tried and tested model and mold and go about your daily activities, the way that we've been doing it for hundreds of years before us, and somehow we're expecting a difference. We're expecting a change. And the first sign of madness is doing things over and over again the same way, expecting a different outcome. So, you've really got to just break all that thinking. And what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is you know a lot more about it. You didn't get to the result that you needed to, and maybe you would next time, or maybe it's always a journey. It never happens overnight. You could always, if it's a work related thing, you could always go and pick up a job elsewhere,
Mm.
and
Yeah, and I guess you're not
and
living in
no
that sort
harm,
of
no foul.
regret, like it's not you're not living in I wonder what would have happened if it actually worked out, right?
Well, yes, and I think we're amazingly creative people, the human race, and creativity gets us leaps and bounds ahead. So we call it innovation, we call it a raft of different terms, but the ability to be able to look at something and say, "Hey, I'm going to make it a little bit different," or this is what I'm thinking. Now, where are those people? If we're all sort of taught from a very young age that you must go and work a 9 to 5 job, and you got to work for someone, and here's how the setup is. I think that doctrine is very thin on the ground in terms of these days, and there's a lot more options available to everyone, and I think technology is that great enabler that allows us to have these choices. That I don't need to spend 10 years at university skilling up to be a profession professional in a certain profession, so that I then can come out and make a difference in the world. And technology does a lot. And, you see more and more these days, people don't have the formal training and they don't have the university education, but they're, or even high school education largely. But they know what they want. They're passionate, they're creative, and, they'll go and follow and get there by hook or by crook. And that's probably the thing that you need more so than anything else. And my dad, when I was a kid, we'd go. He used to have a fashion store and a large fashion store, and we'd go buying in, come up to Sydney, and we'd buy stock and sort of go back and sell it. and he'd have a whole range of different suppliers, and some were the traditional, Italian fashion based, come with all the kudos, and this is going to happen, this is in Milan, and this is what we're going to see here in style and fashion, and they used to, we used to buy off them and sell very well. And then there were others in the market from other countries that you would typically say weren't really known for their industrial fashion sense. And so how were they able to survive? Why did they even, enter the market and create a business in the first place in this space? Where you'd say, don't do it. The Italians, the French, the English, whoever has it all sewn up. Like, they know fashion inside out because of hundreds of years. But yet there's still, these other manufacturers from Asian countries and things. And the way that Dad explained it to me was that they they were out there doing it. So they went out there and they said, okay, if today all we're going to make is t-shirts, and we're going to make, a different colors, so a red one, a green one, a yellow one, a white one, a black one. They don't know anything about the market, let's say, just for this example, but they've got a rack out there out the front of their store that's got those t-shirts on it. People come along and buy one, and they'll buy two, three, four, and they'll go, you know what? This week we sold more green ones than white ones. Let's make double the green ones for next week. And over time, you get to be an amazing expert in the field because you're actually out there seeing what your customers want and being in touch and engaging them. And that's a really important lesson for, what I see in software development. So many times in the tech space, we have an idea, we go and build it in an ivory tower, as we say, in a isolated from the market. So you have this idea,
Yeah.
you go and build it, and you wonder why people aren't using it. And you've spent maybe a bit of money on it, hundreds of thousands on it, millions on it. And I've seen all of those different scenarios. So the key in a lot of, what we see in the technology world is, and even an idea space, is have your idea. What is, and there's a notion which I strongly subscribe to, what is the minimum concept or the minimum that you need to see your idea in the hands of
The
a
minimum viable
customer
product,
where
right?
they can give you feedback. And we yeah, exactly. Exactly. We call that an MVP, a minimum viable product, and it can take many different forms. But there was a friend of mine that had 3 buttons on an app and 2 buttons didn't work, and now it's
Right.
over $100 million business. But they just wanted to get out there and see, you know,
Mm. Yeah.
what are people's thinking in this space, and that is, in a lot of ways, that is as powerful as, if not more so, coming up with the initial idea, because the initial idea is the spark that will drive your business, and then coming and getting people in is like putting the firewood over the
Mm.
spark
Yeah.
and
Amazing.
igniting it.
Yeah, so I was listening to a podcast by Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO. Not sure if you've heard of. Yeah, he said something
Oh
interesting
yeah.
and brought up this concept that I was pretty fascinated by, and I wanted to ask you about it. Do you think that you're being driven or dragged? And where does this sort of motivation come from?
um, Look, I guess it feels like both of those from time to time. Um, it's an emotional journey. It's not all glitter and glam and everything else that you might think goes along with it. There's times where you feel incredibly connected and surrounded to the people by the people around you, and there's times where you feel incredibly isolated and you question you question whether it's going to work or not. Yeah, there's a whole sort of, extreme weather conditions that you face. And I think, we all want to be driven. We all want to be in that driving seat. And I think it's a bit of both. Early on in the journey, you need to drive, because you need to, steer the ship where you want it to go, where you think you want it to go. And that's your value add, that you've got this vision, you've got the idea, and that's where you want to go. Now, through that journey, ideally we want to be able to get to MVP, let's say, with being the driver. And here's what we're going to do. Now, in reality, you might get an MVP, but then competitors or the market expects certain features and functionality, from your product or from, your business. So therefore, you've got to go and satisfy that. So, for example, you might bring out an amazing product in talking in the technology space. You might say, here's something revolutionary. It's amazing. It helps all Australian citizens do X, Y, Z, and they're going to love it, and this and that. Now, if from a business perspective, if that's all you had to do, it would be amazing. Like, that's what you've driven it to, that result. Go and do it. Now, what you get dragged into, I think, is suddenly there's going to be people on the end of the app or the phone or chat or whatever it is. Hey, this doesn't work, or I've got a question about my account, or this user profile, or can I combine my family together, whatever it is. Suddenly you're dragged into having a whole support division around your concept. Now, support's, obviously a needing, a required thing, and it's quite useful, and some people would say it's really essential, and it is. But it's also, tends to be a cost center. So as a business, if you can get away with, not being so support heavy, or what we do when we bring out new features and functions is say, let's make them really frictionless so people can get engaged with it and get involved, and it just works. So you spend more time up front with engineering effort than you do, doing a half-assed job and going, she'll be right, because then support blows up. And so you've got increased demand in support. And that's maybe an area of business. I haven't seen a business that says we're so successful because we've got, you know, 5,000 support people, and that's what makes us win as a business. Having good support is absolutely essential. If you're going, having great support is essential. Like, you don't want to have a bad experience, give your customers a bad experience when you're on support. But so where's that balance? It's a cost center. You can break the bank. You can go broke on support. And that's why there's been, in a lot of cases, a lot of, the larger companies, they do all sorts of things with support. Move it to the Philippines, offshore it, onshore it, AI bot it, uh, all with mixed results. There's not one that I've seen that goes, you've nailed it. This is awesome. People bring it back to Australia, for example, to have that localized voice that, yeah, I know what the weather's doing in Melbourne today. I know, the vineyards in South Australia, and all that's really important. And the phone quality is good, and so on and so forth. So, it's an interesting piece of the puzzle to solve. Um, from where I see, I don't see sort of, bots are an interesting, AI bots and things have been met with an interesting response, mixed responses. And the other day I saw a situation where there was one AI bot talking to another AI bot. So one AI bot sort of rung up and said, "Hi, I'm blah blah blah. I'm here. So, what can I do for you?" And then the other AI bot was there saying, "Hi, that's great. I'm an AI bot and I'm planning someone's wedding. Do you have, capacity for 200
That's the
people?"
language.
Well, that's interesting. I'm an AI bot too. How many, and they're going backwards and forwards about this venue
Yeah.
and dates and people, and
No, I saw something really
working that
scary
through. It was
where,
quite
where it
funny.
was a similar situation to AI bots speaking to each other, and they said something like, um, should we talk in something language to make it more efficient? And then all they do is just bleep, bloop, bleep, bloop, bloop, and like just talking
Oh
back and
yeah.
forth in a language that we can't even understand. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, yeah.
All
Look,
right.
I used to do something like that with scammers. So they used to ring me up, and at one point I got two on the phone, and then, one person sort of saying, "Hey, your IP address is now made public. Did you make the transaction?" And then the other one was a financial services person trying to sell financial services. And so I just sort of, in the old school, turned them upside down and put the phones together. And they're talking away
That's
to
so
each other
good.
for a good 10 minutes. And they're like, no, no, no. Hey, it's so, and I'm just listening in, and I'm so happy you rang me because this month we have a special deal. Just for this month, I have a special offer. No, no, no. I'm asking about you. You're losing money. Yes, we're in financial services. How's
That's
your
good.
finance
That's so
going? And
good.
it was quite
Um,
funny.
yeah. What's one decision
Yeah.
that you've made that has changed the trajectory of your career?
Yeah. Wow. Great question. Great question. Um, to narrow it down to one decision. I mean, there's been a lot. I think I've always lived by the principle that, love what you do and do what you love, whatever that is, because the rest will come. A lot of people sort of line up at the start line and sort of say, well, I'm going to go into this career or that career because it makes a lot of money, or I get to travel, or, whatever your initial motivations are. um, Ultimately, the when the dust settles and the shiny things lose their luster and they become less shiny, uh, you know, fundamentally, you've got to go back to what is it that you love. Now, it's hard to discover that. It's hard to maybe realize that up front. And I mentor a lot of university students and just very around the place and things. And so I always kind of get them to write down, what it is that you like doing. And some of them, I like talking to people. I like, being around people. I like problem solving. I don't like, I don't like presenting in front of people. I love present, whatever it might be. I like to. So you end up with a whole sort of cross section of let's say bits and pieces in a job that you might, or across multiple jobs that you might like. And then it's a matter of using that as a filter and going out into, online and looking at sort of some of these opportunities that are out there. And you don't necessarily get one that's going to cover all of those, but it helps to get you thinking in different areas that you might necessarily have seen from the outset. Like, I want to work on an oil rig because I like being a sort of on the cutting edge. I like pioneering. I like I've got an interest in the earth or whatever it might be. But I guess my where I sit, my focus is very much, you should be working for yourself, or you should be, having a larger say in your own destiny, because the classic full-time employment, working 9 to 5, just doesn't cut it these days. There's so many examples of people that have gone outside that system and made a good living for themselves, because ultimately you want to be able to make a living for yourself, be able to be financially stable and sound. Once you're financially stable, what decisions are you going to make, and how would you make those decisions differently if you, for example, if you went to work because you loved it, not because you had to pay a mortgage or whatever it might be, the fees. So I think in terms of one decision, um, I for me it was probably, yeah, I mean there's a lot of decisions, but one decision was obviously go and work for myself. So there was probably a couple. Um, so yeah, so when I came out of uni, I did the usual thing of working full time for someone because that's what we were programmed as a 6 year old. That even though my dad had, in our family we had businesses for generations, that's just kind of what the programming was at the time, the societal programming. And so I went and worked for someone, and Dad was always saying, why are you making other people money? And I didn't quite understand what he's talking about until about 2 years later, where you go to work for someone, and we just don't even think about thinking it this way, and you might get whatever your salary is, but typically to for everyone to be profitable, the company, your value to the company is typically three times that, for example. So you get paid your hourly rate. What you're really bringing to the company, the value is three times that. And the company structure helps get the opportunities, and that's where the business comes from and the flow of work, and so that's why you're kept employed in very general sense. And so once you sort of realize that, after about 2 years, I went out on my own and started my own company, just me, just consulting. And I worked out that at the time, for me to get my salary, I needed to work 5 days a month. Because everyone's like, well, the common misconception is, well, where will I get money from if I'm not working, if I'm not doing this 9 to 5, 5 days a week, full time, yeah, I don't have to worry about a paycheck. And it's not for everyone, but in terms of the anxiety and the unknown is, well, maybe I won't get work. Maybe people won't want to come and use me, or whatever. There's a whole raft of little voices in your head,
Mm.
and it's just the programming. It's your worst enemy is yourself, being able to come up with all these ideas. And I think funny enough, the I went and worked for myself on that day, and I was concerned about getting 5 days a month work. And I think for the first 7 years, I had one day off, like, to give you an idea. And you put it in those sort of numbers, and it just made, to me, it made a lot of sense that it was, I've got a greater control of my destiny, a greater say in what I'm doing, what I'm not doing, where I want to spend my time, how I don't want to spend my time. And it just made a lot more sense to me. But I mean, that was probably one decision that was pretty, to go out on my own. But the other one as well that comes to mind is I realized somewhere during that first 7 years or
Mm.
5 years that I couldn't actually do everything myself. I'm sort of that person that quite capable, can do, the whole, a wide spectrum of things. And there's a realization that I can't do everything myself. And that was an important realization because it sort of lent itself to many things following that decision. So there's people that say, I've got an idea, and they do it all themselves. They won't let you go near it. They'll say, you do this, you do that. And there's a trust thing involved, and they don't trust anyone. And, all that happens is a mediocre idea coming out of one person rather than an amazing
Mm.
idea coming out of five individuals shared together. And so, yeah, that was, it was a great realization that, hey, I can have 100% of a small pie and run myself into an early grave, or I can have less of a larger pie, involve some amazing people, and end up with go places that I never
Mm.
dreamed possible from that start line, because people just come in, and it's about giving others the ability and opportunity to be creative, and to have input on from their ideas as well. So everyone's got great ideas, and there's no bad ideas, so let's bring them all together, and that's how you're going to build an amazing business, amazing product, amazing whatever it is, having these ideas
Mm. Yeah.
that are shared.
And speaking on that sort of topic, um, Yeah, what's the moment in your life that completely
Yeah.
rewired the way you think? Is it that moment where you realize that you don't want to make someone else money and, don't want to, yeah, make other people rich, but you want to make your own money sort of thing? Or is there another sort of example?
I I guess um yeah, look, I've always had a strong moral compass, just from, growing up, the way I was raised and things like that. So I've always got a good way. I find I've got a good way to look at things. I walk, I've walked away from situations that weren't favorable morally, but financially would have
Yeah.
been amazing. But yeah, I'm the one that's got to
Mm.
sort of look at myself in the mirror and wake up in the morning. So I think for me, fundamentally, um, life has all sorts of trials and tribulations, and life, amazing times in life, and there's times in life that give the amazing times perspective and give them importance. So, in other words, the dips in life that you might experience, and that's life. And I think people will be people, and probably one of my decisions was kind of, doubling down on people and saying no, not losing faith in, and different times, you go through different things, and certain, scenario events happen, and it's about, for me, it was fundamentally about doubling down on that, and just reaffirming that belief that people are beautiful and people are amazing, and that the creativity in people are the ones that get us ahead. And so probably the last 8 years I've changed my perspective on things, in particular in that realm, and really sort of wanted to work with amazing people more so than necessarily have uh, set things up for sort of driving financial gain, solely, wholly and solely. And so being able to have be that it's a sort of a subtle thing, but let's say in business, what's mine is mine, what's yours is mine. I'm going to protect 100% of my pie. You're going to get nothing. So many times we see businesses that sort of do the hockey stick and sort of go to somewhere amazing, and they do really well, and then you're seeing people that have worked there for 20 years still working there, and say, well, what's happened? Oh yeah, my salary went up a little bit. And you're like, but you were instrumental in getting that company to where it was. Surely there should be something that looks after you as well. And a lot of companies do this, but a lot of them don't. And it's just sad to, it's a shame to see it, but it's the programming that we have. And so probably, the last 8 years or so, I've really sort of taken a different perspective to that, and it's a bit different, in terms of the way that I do business and doing business with me. And so I've been able to grow, my latest company, consultancy and software development and things, and had a really strong and positive outlook. I said to myself, if I'm going to do this again, then it's going to need to be something different. I want to do it a different way. I don't want to do it the way that I've done it in the past. And for me, that difference was having international connections, and really kind of looking after the people, having a different model. So, for example,
Mm.
we, off air, we spoke about India, briefly. And so over in India, there was a group over there called the Tata Group, TATA Group. They're massive. They're one of the I think 27% of India's GDP in terms of tax revenue to the government and things like this. So they're a massive company over there, and they're a phenomenal company. They're into everything. They're into construction, they're into cars, they're into a lot of things. And when I was over there, I was driving along, and you'd see sort of this amazing building. This building was just incredible, beautiful building, not so beautiful building. I said, what happened here? Like, why are they, why beautiful buildings and no beautiful building? And the driver at the time was saying, well, they're Tata buildings. I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, the Tata Group own those buildings, and if you're lucky if you can get and work on get and work to work on those. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, Tata are amazing. When they finish their construction projects, they give back to the community. They build a new school. They upgrade a playground. They give them electricity. They give them water or whatever, just purely outside of the project. And so everybody wants to come and work and give 200% because it helps their kids, it helps their families, it helps their community. And that's why they're amazing. And then you get this one, which is, not a Tata building. So that really kind of resonated with me on a lot of different levels. And so being able to bring people on a journey and sort of look after them so that there are life-changing opportunities is incredible. And so, I've grown a team over in India and extended family, and I've been over and stayed with families and had dinners and things like this, and everybody in the region wants to come and work there. And we've now moved 3 times in 18 months because of capacity. And it's, we're just growing and growing and growing phenomenally, but it's really good caliber people and stable. And it's not just a job. It's about getting a better lifestyle and a better future for maybe themselves and maybe for families and things like that around. So, doubling down and getting back to your question of, well, what was my decision? Really just, reinforcing that belief in people and then being able to look after them accordingly. Not that maybe if it's financially, if it's something else or whatever, it's whatever the rates say or whatever the law says. Yes, okay, that's nice, but once again, it's better having less of a larger pie than 100% of just a
Yeah,
pie
on that
that
sort
you're
of principle you're
creating.
talking about with the whole Tata buildings, um, how have you applied that principle
Yeah,
into your business? So what does it look like for you to be investing in the people and yeah, just trying to do the right thing by them?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Look, good call. Um, and so in a previous world, I used to be a Microsoft trainer. So I used to be a trainer of technology classes and used to teach a lot. So technology to people and certifications and training and things like this. So certainly in the technology world, getting trained and attaining certain levels and certifications and things pretty much equates to salary levels and salary changes. So if you're a level 2, you get this. If you're a level 3, you get that. Software developer, cloud architect, whatever it might be. So that's not lost on me, these days by any stretch. And so what I do is not force, encourage everybody to go and get training, everybody to go and get certification. And while you're doing work, I want you to also explore opportunities of being able to, what training are you getting? What certifications? You're a tester. What does that look like? You want to come and do a design and web development and do Figma and various other things. What certifications do you want? And so, yeah, I go and pay for all of that. And that's just part of the people because I want them to continually keep striving to be better than where they are. Don't accept the status quo. Don't accept what we do today as being the way that we're going to do it tomorrow. And it's really just in their own time, up to them. It's available. And it also, certain circumstances. So where one of the offices is in India, they travel. There's employees that travel, 5 hours to get there. So they can't they can't go backwards and forwards each day. So now they're in a certain accommodation arrangement where they're sharing with 8 other people in a smaller premises and things. So looking into that and saying, well, how can we make that better for them and have a place where they can, come to work, almost like, office apartment where come to work, it's provided for you, and then we can, you know, improve your quality of life. So it's not just working 24 hours a day. It's about, how can you make better decisions while improving the quality of your life. And just getting back to that singularly, back to that training piece. If you get better certified, it's better for you. You've got better credentials. You can take that wherever you go, like any education. And certainly from the business side of things, we it helps us in terms of the quality of work that we do, but also the clients that we attract and the
Mm.
projects that we
Yeah,
do and the
and
products we build.
just what I was thinking about is, yeah, I was just thinking about that sort of corporate mindset where it's not really about the people, it's purely about the money. And obviously, that's not the way to go. But if I'm thinking about it from that perspective, is there a risk that if you train them too much and then they get too good, they might just take that training, leave the company, and then you've invested that much money into them and then you can't see the return on investment? Or do you see them staying for longer because of that good you've...
Do you know? Yeah, look, it's a great question, right? And I honestly thought that the notion of that was dead in today's world because, yeah, certainly in the technology space, you need to be good. You need to be, you leave uni's almost irrelevant. If I want to go to uni and do computers and be a programmer, or I come out and I've still got to do a lot of work, a step change to get to where I need to get to. And I remember when I came out of uni, I thought I don't know too much more than when I first started. But it was 4.5 years
Couple of
of
thousand dollars too?
an engineering based degree, biomedical computer engineering. And I was just like, oh, this is scary. I don't really know. But, over time, and in that first couple of years, I learned so much industry specific stuff. Um, and I honestly thought that the notion of, hey, if I train someone up too much, they'll leave and take everything with them has gone. Now, a couple of things. Being a trainer, I've always believed in the education of people. So I'm a huge supporter of it because I went and trained, a lot of people around the world in various technologies and just saw firsthand the impact and difference that sort of stuff makes. So simply, sitting on a course for a week or two or three or four, whatever it is, it makes an amazing difference. The people, in my experience, what I believe is that I want you to be good enough that people ask you to leave, but I want
Mm.
I want to treat you well enough that you don't. So it's up to the business as well to it's on the business to say, hey, let's treat you as a human being and let's work together. You help us, we help you, and we certainly, we if we can help you get to your career, that or further your career, then that's amazing. So for me, it's not about keeping people in cages. It's about letting them sit on the balcony, as a bird free, but really providing an amazing environment there that they don't want to leave. They don't want to fly away. And I think, um, it goes back to what I said originally on this in our time together. Um, if people come to work not because they're forced to or financially they have to, but if they've got financial independence,
Mm.
they'll be a totally different worker. That what their day will consist of is all the things that they love doing. not, so many times you hear this,
Yeah.
I can't believe it's a Monday. They basically dislike the week and wait for the weekends, and dislike the week and wait for the weekends. And, you know, surely that's not the way we live these days. Going back to just a finer point, um, in the past, I've trained people up, had an amazing time with them. They've done super well. They've left, and they've done super well leaving. They've gone and worked in their careers and everything else. And then, as serendipity, as chance would have it, we meet up
Yeah.
again and we end up working together again. They're like, I remember that time, it was great, it was this. And suddenly they're so much more capable, or they're able to fit into different roles. And that's, I can go out and sort of, it's very much a common theme across a
Mm.
lot
Yeah,
of
and I
people that
guess
I've
that
worked
you've
with in the
done
past before.
so right by them that they would love to work with you again, and they know what's coming for them, and they'd be like, "Yep, great person to work with." And work. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it's
Obviously, you're
unique.
someone who loves to scale businesses and push as far as you can get. But is there a limit to where you want to be, or so-called enough for you? Like, where do you have a line for that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Look,
Yeah.
I guess I'm well aware of my limitations. Um, I think, I think, yeah, I think it's money's not my driver.
Mm.
To be financially independent is. Um, there's not sort of this. I love playing the game, and certainly more around the creative side. So being able to build, see what's there, and follow it through. And given my my speciality, if you like, in software integration and application development, it takes me to a wide variety of different industries and verticals in the market, from sort of medical, heavy sort of presence in medical, but also in online gaming and high volume, near real time transactions. And a variety of other businesses that are all sort of facades on engines. So there might be loan type businesses that do assessments and things like this. That, hey, we're putting a front cover over a back end of something and help us out. So it's never a dull moment. There's always sort of potential for a new industry to come in. And so, for example, I'm helping Aboriginals in the middle of Australia get better healthcare, and developing a solution with a partner organisation up there to help the communities to get better medical care and be able to have access to doctors and medicine faster. And they're quite, unconventional solutions and just a different problem space. So, it's quite rewarding doing a lot of that. Uh, so I think, where will I stop? Probably never, because technology evolves. What we're doing today was different to what we're doing 2 years ago. And, what's the next 2 years going to look like? And we had that initial chat about AI and so on. And that's a real step change as well, that, that will be plumbed into everything that we see going forward. um, you know, to what level. There's talk in the next 2 to 5 years that AI will be smarter than sort of the smartest person on earth, and then in 5 years' time, it'll be smarter than the collective humans on earth. And there's parts of me that sort of sit there and think, wow, that'd be interesting to see. But the other part is, you know, there are certain aspects of human behavior I'd love to see a reset on. That, we still blow each other up, we still, have wars, we still, are very sort of lopsided, if you like, in terms of the flow of wealth and things like that. So it'd be great to
Mm. Yeah,
address
I
some
mean,
of those
speaking on
major
the
concerns.
topic of AI, so you do a bit of work in healthcare and AI integration. Um, do you think there's any risks involved in that? Because obviously, healthcare, the stakes are high. It's not just business that you're running with it. Like, like people's lives are on the line in some
Yeah,
cases. Is there any way in your business that it might pose
yeah.
any risks?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. I think, certainly we've got responsible AI, and we've got various initiatives to temper the AI um, craziness that's going on. That how do we kind of put a hand, put some sort of handle on this, and stop it from exploding in every direction, such as deep fake voices and deep fake videos, and we can't tell the difference. And so it's a really interesting time from technology space, but also from the lawmakers and society, and how do we kind of keep up with that, and how far, when are these digital verifications going to come back, and sort of be present that, hey, this is authentic, this is not authentic. And so that'll be an interesting space. I think, in terms of the medical world, um they've done really well in terms of setting up an establishment where we do have highly skilled doctors, and we do have highly skilled medical professionals and service providers, um, providing quality care. And my thoughts are that, when we definitely don't want to upset that in any particular way. And taking AI out of the equation for the moment, we go back to the term Dr. Google. I had a look on Google, and suddenly the
3 days
pain in
left to
my arm
live.
is a heart attack, right? So yeah, and yeah, and it's and I've heard some doctors refer to it as a nightmare, because people come in with often misconceived ideas and conceptions, and they're constantly having to have that conversation of proving Dr. Google wrong based on some arbitrary search results they found, versus what the doctor knows of 20, 30 years experience. So, you know, the the notion of using technology to present different points of view and opinions isn't new. It's just, in different forms. So my take on AI is not, by no stretch, to it's more to assist the doctor in their decision making process, in the sense that AI is really good at summarizing, really good at translating from one language to another language, to dealing with structured content and producing a result that you need. Where I find that I struggle with AI is telling it to be creative. So, hey, I want you to go out and do the, create this for me and do that. And very mixed results depending on, engines. It's almost like being
Mm.
purposely limited and dumbed down for us. But if I've got documents in front of me, if I've got content in front of me, that I'll say, hey, I want you to go and summarize this, and bring it down into, decision points, it'll do that. And so the role that I see at play today is a doctor's looking at, examining a patient, or looking at a series of test results and things, and saying, okay, well, what does this feel? What does that feel? What is, and they're saying, well, as let's say the doctor is coming up with a list of sort of symptoms and results, and as they're conducting their examination, what AI is doing is saying, well, out of everything that I've seen, all the Webster's Encyclopedia Britannica, or the scientific medical journals, the English Royal Medicine, out of everything I've seen, these are some of the talking points. It could be this, could be, like, ask about this, ask, the test for this disease or that disease or whatever, um, is brought to the forefront. So in terms of, you and I, it's a bit like you've got the Encyclopedia Britannica on the wall when you were younger, these books that weren't digitized. and you'd go and pick up the A volume, and it would tell you everything about the A, or you'd pick up the M, and it'd tell you everything about the M. Now, think that AI has already gone and summarized that. So as you're, as we're sort of conducting a medical examination, you come out, well, yeah, there's a pain here, there's this, that, whatever. Suddenly, it's assisting the doctor's decision-making process by saying, what do as a doctor, I might say, show me, all the similar diseases or all the similar symptoms that have a sore leg, sore lower left limb. And it'll come back and go, well, from the Encyclopedia Britannica, I'll go and, here's all the things. Let's drill into a couple of these. So I think it's more of a very intelligent, the role that AI plays is more of a very intelligent assistant as opposed to,
Yeah,
hey,
I
I'm the
mean,
new doctor on the
do
block.
you think that it will ever get to a point where we don't need that human aspect and it's all AI?
Um, I think it's only, AI is only as good as the sample set that you've got. Now, how does, at the moment, the gaps that I see is that a doctor's expertise isn't recorded in, you know, and documented in journals or in some sort of content that is repeatable. There might be videos that they can do. There might be, I just haven't seen it at the moment. I haven't seen a doctor that's been in the industry for 40, 50 years. Suddenly, here's my skills that I've learned. And particularly surgeons and things that'll look at, a lot of them say, we'll only know
Yeah.
once we open you up because everyone's different. So there's, this tendon runs a different way to that tendon or whatever. So they'll have to make a lot of decisions on the fly in a lot of cases that, hey, we're going to go this way as opposed to that way. So look, I think today's world, it's a leap. Can we get,
Yeah.
the 80-20 rule? Can we get sort of a common baseline and say, right, well, you've got a fever, you've got a runny nose, you've got a cough.
Hmm.
Chances are you might have a cold, maybe, But some of the things that would be really good at, for example, I was overseas in Switzerland recently, and I went to the doctor over there I was ill with a flu, chest infection, and they gave me a blood test by just pricking my finger, having a glass tube of drawing maybe 2-3 mils. And then by the time I got to see the doctor 5 minutes
All right.
later, he already had the
Yeah.
blood test results.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, gee, that's pretty good. So there was a
Hmm.
machine there that
Hmm.
analyzed it and so on. So, you know, everybody in the medical world, coming up with a diagnosis is roughly about 50% of what you present with on the day. So I've got this, I got that,
Right.
and then the other
Yeah.
50% is family history. So, does anyone in the family suffer with it? Tell me about your parents. Tell me about genealogy. What sort of, what's your family history? So all that's really important. Now, we just don't record that. If you think about AI, I'm sure it'll happen at some point in the future. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm sure AI will be sentient beings, essentially, being able to sort of self-govern, self-function. But at the moment, we need to take, we need to have more information available for
Yeah.
them to act
Um,
upon.
yeah. What's the most exciting thing that you've seen so far or that's coming up in your field?
With, um, I think a couple of things. One is that regardless of the way that we do things today, integration, something I've done for years and years and years, software integration, application integration still remains, the concepts and principles still remain as true as they were when I first started to where they are now. So the way that we do it might be different from day to day, but they're still there. We still need to connect. We still need to glue systems together and so on. I think I think probably where the thing that I'm looking at the moment and sort of excited by is probably the wearable technologies. So seeing what sort of devices are coming to market and what they keep track of. Because we often go to the doctor and with high blood pressure. Gee, your blood pressure's high. I'm dizzy. I'm this. How long have you had high blood pressure for? I don't know.
Mm.
When did it start? Oh, mate, I think maybe 2 days ago. Like, it'd be great to have sort of some sort of history that sort of kept an eye on this stuff, that maybe for the last year and a half you had high blood pressure, or for the last year and a half you had low blood pressure, and then there was a blip, which is right now. So maybe it's not necessarily something that is inherently part of your lifestyle and living. It's just something else, a virus or some sort of bacteria, whatever it might be. So it'd be good to see just where those wearable technologies and wearable devices are heading. And a lot of things are being done in this space, and it's a very interesting area. I'm looking into rare diseases at the moment, and often there's a large number of people that present to doctors that go misdiagnosed as a rare disease, just because by the very nature it's rare, and that the average doctor doesn't come across it too often. So if we can reduce that lag time, and often it goes a year or two goes by of having this rare disease before you start to home in on it. And if we can sort of get closer to identifying and diagnosing it correctly up front, then treatment option. There's a wider range of treatment
Mm.
options in a lot of cases. There's a lot of, for example, there's diseases out there that if you catch it in the first 6 months, you can do X, Y, Z. If you don't, if it's
Mm.
18 months or 2 years, unfortunately, you go blind. So it'd be great to be able to assist in that
Mm.
process and
I mean,
expedite
have you
the
seen any
diagnoses.
wearables on the market that have been able to do this, or and if you have, what are they sort of lacking? What features do you reckon they need?
Um, yeah, look, I think there's a few things. One is all of them do, the common stuff like oxygenation, pulse, sleeping, movement. They're in the form of rings and things like that. There's some interesting ones around sort of diabetes, blood sugar levels, glucose, um, other for the elderly, things like urinary tract infections, things like that. But they're all devices, but not necessarily all
Mm.
packaged up
Yeah, so
as
you
one
think it's
nice
just
wearable.
getting everything into one place is the way to do it? Do you think? Yeah.
I do, I do. I think there's things around patches under the skin. There's sort of certain wherever they tend to go, and they're more for the diabetes and tapping into the blood and doing those things. And so I think that's one half of the equation. One half is, as a wearable, I can give you back information about what your current body system is. But I can't necessarily tell you if you're coming down with something, or you've got your
Mm.
body's not
Yeah.
functioning as the way that it
Um,
should.
yeah, going back to the whole started this whole process, how you ended up getting into the whole AI technology space. Um, yeah, what was the first sort of spark of interest? Like, how did you end up going down the path of AI? Fact.
Dragged along. No, so previously to AI, machine learning, was used in the same sentence, and so machine learning was about modeling effectively. So hey, I've got a model which is really a function of x, y, of just say x. So you've got some function that says, x plus 4, right? And so when you plug a number 2 in, you get 6 out. When you plug a number 8 in, you get 12 out. So it's all about modeling. Now, these models are a little bit more complex than that, but they're not sort of incomprehensible in the machine learning world. And so that was quite a big, that was quite a significant area in the market, that these models we can model, things like climate change. There's a lot on. We can model things like scheduling, and given the right inputs, we can get kind of what our outputs are. And so all these models, are, some models were very good at saying it's A or B if given some input. Classification models. Some are very good at giving you a range of buckets and things, categorization. So it's either a green thing, a red thing. So given the input, we think it's going to be more likely this, it's more likely that. So there was a range of different functions or different models that did different things. But the real sort of science behind it, or the art form, was training that model or tweaking it for your particular scenario or your particular case. So it's not one model suits all and fits all in the machine learning world. So there was a real skill and a real art form at training the models, and that's where data scientists and things played a massive role of being able to understand what changes needed to happen to the model. So basically, the way that these models work from a high level is that I um, I have a known set of inputs, and I have a known output. So, for example, it might be, Ethan, you're at university, all your in the session in your semester scores of smaller tests, and we want to predict what you'll get on the final exam. So what we have is years worth of all the previous students, what their smaller test scores were to what we know what they got in the final exam. So we'll feed that into the model. So we'll say, right, here's all their interim score results, and here's their final exam. So what the model will do is tune itself with its internal, there's sort of internal weightings that the model has. So what it does is tune itself with the training data that we give it, so that if you gave it the interim scores, you say, okay, what would be your predicted final score result? You go, well, this person's going to get 87, this person's going to get 72, 63, whatever it might be. And that's how we train the model, and then we sort of let it loose on the world, if you like, on real data. And the problem about training model, and it's a real kind of art form, the problem about training models is that if you don't
Hmm.
train it enough, it gives you back crappy answers. If you train it too much, it it only gives you back correct answers on the
Hmm.
training data that it's had. It's overtrained. So in the world of AI, um, typically AI models are one of those machine learning models, but trained in a different way. So the AI models are something called neural networks, which sounds amazing, and it sounds, something out of Skynet and Terminator. But really it's a particular model. And what it does is say, well, here's a list of inputs, here's the output. Um, Let me go and update my internal weighting so that I can do that. When and really these models are only about 2 to 3 pages of Python script to make the model up. The thing that makes them very powerful is the training set that they've had. So they've been trained on trillions of rows of data. And where we talk about the parameters, they've got billions of parameters. So in the AI world, these models are around now. So that I tend to call it, the Meta, Microsoft, OpenAI, Grok, all that sort of stuff are around, and largely the
Mm.
GPT models are based on this. So the GPT models, the question of are they really intelligent, or are they really good? What word comes next? Predictors. And that's a
Mm.
debate for another time. Like, what is intelligence? And so the way that we train them today, so if you need to know everything about everything, we've got this model that we then say, I'm going to ask you any question about any topic, and you're going to come back with an answer. But you're only really as good as the data that you've been trained on. It doesn't I haven't come across great leaps of faith that say, hey, I know we're talking about people coming over to dinner and heating chicken up to a certain temperature, but really this is the same in the molecular world around, the atomic bonds between potassium and oxygen. Like, I haven't seen, those
Mm.
correlations made in any stretch. It's really been trying to pull out in the right way about the learned information. So that's kind of how the AI sort of world works. And I the this what I've personally seen is that because of the fear factor, the AI responses have gotten dumbed down less. They're becoming less and less useful, or they're becoming more and more generic because
Yes,
they
so-
don't want to have bias, they don't want to upset people, they don't want to, and
Mhm.
I've got a whole bunch of ethical questions around all of that, but don't get me started. Um, so who wins? The the people that win in this are the ones that don't adhere to that. So, South Korea, for example, or the people who build their own models that don't apply those layers over the top of it that restrict you from using it. So certainly the AI that we had at the very beginning when AI exploded is a lot more powerful than
Mm.
I think than what we have today. It's useful, and what AI today uncovers is a lot of the mundane administrative work that people do in their jobs. That, hey, if you didn't have to do it, what else could you be doing? And people are sort of going, well, my job's going to be replaced. And in the IT world, we have that sort of, we're faced with those decisions and those scenarios all the time. If I'm a Visual Fox Pro developer, if I'm a COBOL developer, if I'm a Fortran developer, if I'm a, you know, there are certain pockets where I can work, but there's better and more efficient ways of doing it today. And certainly in the IT industry, for example, Friday night used to be when tape backups were done at banks and companies and financial institutions and things. So to carry out tape backups, someone used to wheel around a wheelbarrow full of tapes, and they used to spend 6 hours putting them into a device to back up the data, putting them back onto the wheelbarrow and going and storing them securely. That used to be a large part of their Friday. And now, we don't hear of that anymore because drives are smaller, solid state, storage capacity increased. What do those people do? They're able to do other things other than watch tape spin around doing a tape backup. So I actually think it's a massive boost for people and
Mm.
industry and workforce and output. I don't think it's something to be scared of. I think it's
Mm.
a great area
Yeah,
for
that's a good
opportunity.
point you raise. Yeah, just one last question for you. Um, what kind of legacy are you looking to leave
Yeah.
behind in terms of the AI space and also in your personal life? Yeah, what legacy do you want to leave behind, and what's the main impact that you would like to that you'd be satisfied with, essentially?
Yeah, good question. Good question. I think I think personally to be the best human being I can be, uh, you know, for those that I love dear around me and hopefully there's sort of sayings of being a teacher, that the gratitude is not teaching the student everything that you know, it's seeing
Mm,
them surpass what they thought was possible. And so, for those around me, um, being able to sort of see them go past what they thought their ceilings were in life would be amazing. And I think one of my traits that you sort of ask my kids and those
mm,
that I love dear is that I always say be different. Don't be the same, be different, because being the same
mm,
isn't going to give you a different outcome in life. In terms of beyond that realm, family's everything to me, and it's really the rest of life can go by the wayside. But certainly, what is it that persists in life? And in 100 years' time, what will people be saying? And I sort of sit back and I think to my experiences. We talk about my grandma and how she used to make pancakes on a Sunday in a particular way, or my great grandma, how the fresh figs that she used to pick and do present in a certain way. So it's not riches, it's not wealth, it's wealth in terms of people and the rich life that you had, that you lived. um, for me, it's about he- trying to help as many people as possible to live a
mm,
life that they never thought was possible.